Hello, John.
Hi, Ty.
How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. This is the Jon Donner who raised $4 million from Microsoft during the coronavirus. This is correct?
It's correct, yeah.
The one and only. So before we get into that, first I have the honor of knowing you for 11 years. Can you imagine?
Wow.
11 years. We met in 2009 in Barcelona when your wife, Nili, and my partner, VCforU, had the EMBA with me, and you did your PhD. So I was very lucky to get to know you back then. The nicest guy I probably know, which is true. And I want to speak with you about the kind of the backstory of how it came to be, and kind of where you grew up, a bit about your life story, all the way to Nanofabrica. Let's start there.
Cool.
About your background.
And thank you. I would have said the same things about you, that I was lucky to meet you 11 years ago, and the nicest guy that I know.
Bullshit.
So I was born in South Africa. Then I moved to Israel at a young age, and I was brought up in Israel. I went to the army. I was in an elite unit in the army, after which I did a degree in physics and electrical engineering. And then I moved to Spain, where I met you and did my PhD in nano-optics at an institute called VCforU. At that institute, I later worked as, I led a spin-off of an electro-optical device. So that's the best way to be an entrepreneur. You get a paycheck from day one. After that, in 2016, I came back to Israel and started Nanofabrica, together with Eyal Shelef, who's CTO and co-founder.
How did you meet Eyal Shelef?
So he was at HP Indigo. He was there for about 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then he left his big management position to start a startup in 3D printing. And when these startups, you meet with all industry experts, and then someone told us that we should meet. And then we met. And the night before we met, I told my wife Nili that tomorrow I'm going to meet my next partner.
She was jealous?
No, she was okay. My next, yeah.
Very good. So 2016, you started Nanofabrica, and I remember us talking at that time about finding the right need for the product, which was not so clear. And I also read an article by Eran Wagner, who invested in you in the seed stage about 2 years after that, saying he fell in love with the team. He didn't fall in love with the idea at first, but then after dating a little bit of time, he invested, which is, I assume, a very good option, a good decision. So can you tell us more about that process of maturing in terms of commercial readiness and market need?
Yeah, sure. So sort of the idea started off as a technological idea. It came from the previous spin-off. And basically the idea was that we could make a super precise 3D printer that was much cheaper than any printer that was out there. So at the beginning, it's a bit funny because our name is Nanofabrica, but actually we have micron resolution right now. And the historic reason is that when we started off, we did have nanometer resolution. And we wanted to be a direct competition to a company that's out there and that's doing pretty well. And we got the good advice from day one to start working with the customers, the final customers, even though we were very far away from the product itself, the same as the software companies do.
So a design partner in a sense.
Yeah, yeah. So we went out, we knocked on any doors that we could, mainly in Israel, and we sort of proposed a value proposition that we were aiming to get to and asked for their feedback. So we were like giving presentations. Hi, we can do 1 nanometer resolution 3D printing. Do you want to buy parts? Do you want to buy a printer? How much would you pay for it? And that's when we realized that that's not what the market needs, and that sort of led us to a pivot in the technology.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what is the current offering?
So the current offering is ultra precise 3D printing over a relatively very large volume. So we can do like 1 micron resolution, and just for reference, a blood cell is 10 microns, a hair strand is 100 microns. So we do pixels that are 100 times smaller than a hair, and we do it over like a size that's about like the size of a cell phone. So that means that if you have small parts, you can make lots of parts next to each other, like 10,000 parts overnight. And then it's really a technology that could be used for manufacturing.
Got it. What is the logic behind the Microsoft deal? I mean, are they looking into get into the printing industry?
So first of all, Microsoft are investors in the i3 fund. So they've known us from the start. So they were able to follow the company from very early on. Second of all, their fund M12 has already invested in 3D printing, one of the better investments I think that there are. Markforged, a company called Markforged. So they have experience in the field, in investing in the field and in the field itself. The fund itself is mainly a financial fund. It's not aligned with Microsoft's strategy, although we will be looking inside Microsoft for partnerships and customers.
Got it.
I should also mention at this point maybe that the M12 co-led the round together with a fund called Next Leap Ventures, which is a fund of ex-Intel people that came out of Intel.
So it makes sense in terms of manufacturing and so on.
Exactly.
Got it. Can you elaborate a little bit on how the coronavirus had any effect on the closing of this round? Were there any issues around that with more Zoom meetings and?
Yeah, sure. So it was, I would say it was very dramatic the last few weeks. The lawyers everyone was pushing really fast to close the deal. Already we had a green light from everyone, and it was just the legal issues, which can take a long time. It can take up to 3 months between a term sheet and a final signing of the contract. I think it wasn't far from 2 weeks in our case, because all the lawyers really understood the situation, worked really hard around the clock.
So it wasn't a big hurdle for you, working remotely.
So I guess there was that issue of the closing the lawyers. There was one investor that defaulted at the last moment because of the financial situation. He suffered a large blow. Yeah. But luckily it didn't interfere with the deal going forward and getting closed.
Perfect. Yeah. So thank you very much for the talk. Great. And wish you all the success with Nanofabrica, and we'll see you soon, I guess.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.